531 at 55 KRCD Talk Station. Joe Strecker's already over at that site, checking out what you can get for 35 bucks. It sounds impressive. GreenBeanDelivery.com. Check it out. We'll get right now, as promised on the telephone, Fox 19's very own Ben Swann back on the program. We talk to him every Tuesday and get a reality check. Ben, welcome back, my friend.
How are you, Brad?
I'm good, man. I'm really good. Found out about a brand new, a fairly new business that was open and alleviating and eliminating the reality of food deserts in Cincinnati and elsewhere. It's a fantastic concept. But yesterday, I was led to believe that Ron Paul was dropping out of the race. He'd suspended campaigning, apparently had some financial issues or something. Wait a minute. Now I'm finding out that no, he's not really out. What's the real answer to this, Ben?
Yeah, this is very interesting because obviously it was the headline on Drudge yesterday, Paul's out, and you couldn't really miss it. Everybody was running this. And then you go to the actual statement that was released by the campaign, and that's not at all what was said. But again, it's a misunderstanding of what he's doing.
Well, did Drudge or other pundits read into it like, wow, this is just the beginning of it's like cancer, you get diagnosed and it's gradually going to eat you away and you're going to die. Is this like that? Well, it's just the beginning of the end for Ron Paul.
No, I think what it is the pundits misread into it, maybe in part because they don't understand, again, the process. And so, Drudge obviously links to other sites, but the site he linked to was Washington Times, and if you read the Washington Times article, it was clear they either did not have an understanding of what he was doing or just cared not to.
Or spun it so it makes it sound like he's out so the Ron Paul supporters give up and take their very, very strong support ball and go home.
That's right. Here's what he said in the statement. Essentially, Congressman Paul said he is not going to actively campaign in the remaining 11 primary states, which essentially means, look, he's got Texas and California, the two big states coming up.
Right.
That means I am not going to go out and buy TV ads in those states, which are extremely expensive to buy advertising in. He's not going to buy ads in those states. Instead, what he says is, I'm going to focus my campaign on winning delegates in the states that are holding their state conventions right now. That's what he said in this statement. And now they've all said, well, okay, look, he's dropping out. He'll continue to try to rack up some delegates, but that means he's out. No. What he's saying is, I'm going to not focus on straw poll contests that actually don't mean anything. If you get the majority of votes in Texas or California in these polls, it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, as we've been talking about, it's about the number of delegates you pick up. So he's saying I'm going to redirect, number one, my attention, but number two, my finances. Because remember, out of all the Republican candidates, especially of three, Santorum, Gingrich, and Paul, who held in the longest against the Romney machine, you essentially have Paul is the only one who's not gone into debt. And so he's saying, rather than going into debt and continuing to spend money on these other things that we don't think are worth it, we're going to use what we have in a more efficient way, and that's, again, focusing on the delegates.
Delegates, then, and I guess the point is if he gets enough of them going into the convention, he has some very strong political sway.
Absolutely, he does. Well, if he gets it not going into the convention, he becomes the nominee.
Well, that kind of goes without saying, but mathematically, that didn't seem to be really possible at this late stage of the game.
Well, that's what's really difficult to understand. I've actually been talking to a lot of people in the RNC about this, trying to get a feel for it, but it looks like, based on something I found from 2008, this lawyer who wrote an opinion, an RNC legal counsel who wrote an opinion to the head of the Utah National Committee, essentially saying delegates are not bound under RNC rules. They're allowed to go to their conscience. Because the delegates are set up, the design of delegates is actually to protect the party from a candidate who would not fare well in the general election, but gets lots of votes in the primaries. And so the delegate system actually protects the party from putting the wrong candidate in there.
So, Ben, in other words, the delegates are allowed to pick someone better than, say, a media-selected candidate like, I don't know, let me throw one out there, maybe Mitt Romney.
Well, that's the idea behind it. They're supposed to, they're like a fail-safe for the party to override the decisions made in those polls.
So, for Ron Paul, anyway, the fat lady has not sung. There is still a strategy, and he's still going as strong, I suppose, as he ever was. He's not going to be spending money in states where he can still get a bunch of delegates.
You're not going to see commercials for Ron Paul running all over the place, but you haven't already. So, he doesn't spend money like that, and he understands. Look, and just real quick, this past weekend, you had Oklahoma and Arizona. He won the majority of delegates in Arizona, even though the GOP has admitted he won a big chunk, but they locked up the rest of the votes and said, well, we'll count them later this week because we're not really sure. Oklahoma was so crazy that state convention actually was shut down because they were trying to end it, realizing that, and there's lots of video of this, but realizing that Paul had so many supporters there, the GOP tries to end it, and instead it was held in the parking lot, and they voted 25 delegates in the parking lot.
I love that one.
It's just crazy how it's happening.
Well, I tell you what, he has some very strong support out there in the world, and again, the fat lady has not sung on Ron Paul yet. Stick around, Ben Swann has got more to talk about. 8:40. Perfect bump music for it, Joe. Little 53rd and 3rd. That's just a coincidence, right? Anybody knows the lyrics to that Ramon song knows exactly why it's been queued up for the next topic with Fox 19's very own Ben Swann. He does Reality Check, and he's cluing us in on the reality of some of the stories that are sometimes reported properly, sometimes not, but certainly cluing us in on the shenanigans. A little flip-flopping with Barack Obama. Barack Obama, the senator, favored gay marriage. Barack Obama, the politician running for office, was against gay marriage. Now Barack Obama, the guy that wants to be reelected in the fall in desperation mode, now is in favor of gay marriage. What's the story on this? And then relative to Romney's position?
Well, I think it's kind of interesting there because I think you set it up really well. I mean, you obviously, as a senator, then as a presidential candidate, and now, as a president running for re-election, President Obama's had every position on gay marriage that he could possibly think of. But the most interesting about it is, I don't think the majority of people in this country were surprised. This wasn't a bombshell of any kind to hear him announce that he's now in support of gay marriage after all these years. I don't think anyone really bought into that. It was this strange kind of about face to say, well, it's time to take a new position based on the political climate. It had nothing to do with conviction. That's what it seemed like.
Well, I would guess you're right. And I've always drawn distinctions with this, Ben. I'm on record, and I know that a lot of my audience disagrees with my position on this, but, as a libertarian, I can draw whatever conclusions I want and try to support them.
Sure.
I view marriage in the church as something different from what a state might define it as. And let's face it, Ben, you and I both know that states do things that run contrary to religious doctrine and dogma all the time. That doesn't mean that your religion is approving of it just because your governor decides to do something or your governing body decides to do something. You can continue to proselytize and believe in what you want to believe. So if a state were to say, fine, go ahead, get married, we don't care. That extends the legal protections and obligations that husbands and wives has to couples who are men and couples who are women, gay and lesbian. A church, as long as a church isn't going to be construed as being discriminatory or homophobic or otherwise required to compromise their doctrinal dogmatic principles because a state does, then can't we coincide or can't we mutually exist together?
Well, see, the problem with what you just said is it's way too intelligent for this argument. Yeah, because first of all, you just made actual clear points to the issue of gay marriage. Nobody in this discussion right now is looking to make actual clear points. What they're interested in doing is politicizing. And when you politicize, you have to try to sweep as many people into one group as you can, and you obviously have to demonize the other side. And what you said, I think, makes the most sense in terms of creating the distinction between the state and the role of the state and the authority of the state versus religious institutions. Certainly, if you legalize gay marriage in Ohio, that would not extend to a requirement for all churches to have to perform it.
Yes, but that's something that the church really is concerned about, and I've heard people of faith be concerned. Well, wait a second. It happened in the employment situation. 1 minute I was not obligated to, hire a homosexual or a lesbian if they clearly presented themselves as such. I could use that as a grounds to not hire them. Now, I guess you've got discrimination laws that prevent that thing from happening. So if it can happen in the employment realm, why couldn't it equally happen in the religious realm?
Well, as you said, it would have to be, when you would draft these laws, obviously there would have to be clear distinctions made, and that's one of the problems. We don't make those clear distinctions in the get-go. We take people's word for it. But again, consider, that the president has had really every position on this, but on the opposite side, you have Mitt Romney, who's also had both positions on this, because when he was governor of Massachusetts, in many ways, he was kind of the father of gay marriage in terms of being the first governor to not only allow gay marriage in his state, but to actually order it begin. through the state process. Now, Romney says, well, that's because the state Supreme Court actually ordered him to do so and he had to follow the law. But that's actually not true, because in the way that Massachusetts is set up, it's one of the few states that the Constitution actually prevents the Supreme Court in Massachusetts from being able to control certain or make rulings on certain areas, and one of those areas is marriage. And so in the case that was brought before them where two women wanted to be married in Massachusetts, the Supreme Court ruled on it in Massachusetts, but it was a suggestion, recognizing even in their ruling, in their statement, recognized they did not have the authority to make anything happen here, but believed that the state should go forward with it.
It was a suggestion to the legislature. Listen, my hands are tied constitutionally, my state constitution, I'm a justice. I can't do it, but we think that's dumb and that you guys should do something about it.
And the state legislature, when they attempted to do it, could not get it through, and then Romney was the one who unilaterally said, no, we're going to begin doing it. It was politically expedient at the time. Now he says he's against it. So between these two guys, it's like watching, some kind of game where they keep shifting the pea under the cup, and no one's really sure where it is and who's got it this time.
Yeah. Three-card Monty going on. Great, and at least both of them are doing it, Ben, so there's no lesser of two evil choice here.
That's right.
Fox 19, Ben Swann. I look forward to talking next Tuesday. Watch you all the time on Fox 19, and sure appreciate the work that you're doing, exposing stupidity and shenanigans wherever it may be.
Appreciate it, Brad.